All right. Very cool. Hey guys. All right. So those of you who were listening in on the Instagram feed there a minute ago, I'm going to go over a little bit of this stuff a second time. I'm going to spend probably 20 minutes, 30 minutes tops talking about this. And then I want to open it for some Q&A. So forgive me if I ignore your questions. Go ahead and if you leave them as a comment on the YouTube video, or you can still throw them up here. I'll try and get to some of them later. But I want to spend a solid 20 minutes talking about how to get a raise. So for those of you, hopefully, who are interested in that, you will find this useful. And those of you who are not, well, hopefully you are already self-employed or running your own company, and you know the kind of things that it takes to get a raise out of an employer because you are one. So I'm going to dive in here. There's getting a raise is essentially a two-step process. And it's important to understand why you do both of them in order to execute both those steps. The first step in getting a raise is provide more value. The second step in getting a raise is ask for it, and ask for it in a way that is compelling. Obviously, you can ask for a raise without providing more value, and you might get it. So you could do worse than to just ask for it. Those who don't ask for a raise usually won't get one, because as an employer, why would I pay you more to do something you're already doing? Like, if you're already working for me, why would I pay more money for it? You know, that's what it comes down to. So it's important to ask for it. But if you're not actually providing more value, and if you don't have a threat behind that asking, like if you don't have a legitimate opportunity to go somewhere else and to bring the value you're providing to someone else, then it's not, then I don't, as an employer, I don't really have any incentive to pay you more. Okay, so let's start back over a little bit. The first step to getting a raise is to provide more value. And ideally, you're providing value in such a way, or within the avenues of what your employer actually wants, right? So the best way to provide value to an employer is to figure out what your employer's pain points are. What are the responsibilities that they're carrying? What are the things they're doing that you might be able to do instead? Jordan Peterson has this great quote where responsibility has been neglected, as opportunity lurks where responsibility has been abdicated. That's a fancy way of saying anytime you have the chance to take responsibility for something new, if you do that, you will provide more value. I'm going to give you an example. In the tree service, there's a lot of small tasks that are critical to the function of the tree service that I, as the employer, generally take on myself. But as a good employee, they might potentially do, and that would relieve some of my stress and some of my burden. For example, an employee who decides to take it upon themselves to keep the saw sharp, an employee who takes it upon themselves to watch the equipment maintenance schedule and keep track of when the chipper and the ditch witch were greased up. An employee could take it upon themselves to do a quick scan of my trucks every other morning to make sure that the tires are full and that the oil's been checked. An employee could take it upon themselves to, let's just say, bring a tarp and keep all of the tools in the same place on the job site. So those are just all small examples of little pinch points, things that I do very consciously every single day that basically any of my employees could do, and they could take responsibility off of me, and they could make themselves more valuable to me. Now, obviously, the best leverage an employee can have is to be invaluable, to be priceless. The employee who all of a sudden has the whole the whole weight of the company like on their shoulders because they've just taken on more and more responsibility that way, well, they're going to have some leverage, some serious leverage when they go to step 2, which is asking for the raise, because all of a sudden they were doing all these things that I used to have to do. And then if they leave, I'm going to have to do them again. And all of the relief I had been feeling, all of that great relaxation of the responsibility I had carried that they have then taken up, I will have back on my shoulders. And then I'm going to have to train someone new to do those things. So an employee who can make themselves valuable in those ways, who can take those responsibilities, they will have leverage when it comes to the ask, right? So step 1, provide more value. Now, me personally, as a tree service employer, I have a list. It's actually kind of a pretty in-depth list of a bunch of specific technical skills that both my groundies, those who are on the groundsman track, and my climbers, those who are training to become climbers, that they can learn. And they have the list right in front of them. They can read that every night and intentionally develop these skills that I've told them that I value. And that will also provide more value to me, because when I know that they have these skills, I can let them do it. At some point, I can put, a good skilled climber in charge of the crew, and I can go off and start another job, or I can go run bids, or I can do other things as they develop those skills. But until they do, they're not worth that much to me because they can be replaced. So that's the other part of the value thing is, okay, the harder you are to replace, the more valuable you are to me. And therefore, the more I'm willing to pay you if you have the opportunity to go work somewhere else for more money. So provide more value, become indispensable, take responsibility. All of those things will make me as an employer want to keep you. The more I want to keep you, the more leverage you have in asking for more money. And then step 2, ask for more money. It's essential, because I'm probably more of a softie than most employers are. And I want to pay my employees more, but I really don't want to pay them more than I have to keep them around. I mean, it's both. I want them to do well and succeed, but I'm not going to just voluntarily give them more money when I don't have to, because they've already agreed to work for less. But if they come to me and say, hey, look, I've got this other job offer. These other companies are paying climbers, X, Y, Z an hour. Here's the ways that I have been going above and beyond even what our job description is. And when you hired me, these are the skills I had, but these are also now I've built up all these other skills. And so therefore, I think I'm worth more money than I was when you hired me. So I would like to earn this much. And so that's the other part of asking, is you should have a compelling case. You should have alternatives. There should be a threat of leaving. You should also have a value proposition of what is it you're doing now that you weren't doing when you were hired at the initial rate, that allows you to justify your increased wage. And then also, what are the new responsibilities that you've taken on that will be back on my shoulders if they choose to leave? Now, obviously, I'm a teacher. I like teaching. I spend a lot of time and effort on my employees just because I like teaching. And so I'm always really bummed when they go to leave, because I've just invested a lot in them. And so that's going to incline me more towards paying them more to keep them around. It's always cheaper for me as an employer to keep an employee who's good than it is to train up a new one. And that's another thing you as employees can know. It's cheaper to keep you around than it is to train a new one. And so that's another sort of point of leverage with an employer when you go to ask for more money. But at the same time, if you are not really confident that you are providing more value, if you are not really confident, then asking for more money is a risky thing, because you are opening up the opportunity for your boss to be critical. And you're opening up the opportunity for your boss, you're requiring them to make a decision in a moment if they're worth keeping, if you are worth keeping. Because if I had an employee who I've been trying to train and isn't really learning, isn't really taking responsibility, isn't really growing, they're not picking up the skills on that list that I gave them, that I told them, look, these are the skills I want you to know, learn them, please. If they're not doing any of those things, and then they come to me and they ask for more money just because they've been with me 6 months, but they're not providing any more value, I'm going to be inclined to say, no, I mean, you can leave if you want, I'll hire someone else. Because the truth is, I can hire someone else. There's lots of people. Like it's not like I'm that's the balance. If you're not providing more value, if you're not a priceless person for the company, then what's to stop me from replacing you as an employee, as an employer? What's to stop me? And so that it opens up that opportunity for me to make that choice. Jake, you make a good point. Sounds a little ruthless as an employer, but the openness is probably more desirable than hidden motives or unpredictable expectations. That's part of what I'm trying to do here. And that's part of why I give my employees that list right when I hired them, basically. I gave them that list that said, hey, look, here's my expectations. I figure you could probably get through this chunk of skills within 6 months. I've got the new hire set of things that I want them to learn. And then I've got another section of skills that's an apprentice. And then I've got another section of skills that qualifies you as a journeyman. And then I've got another section of skills that qualifies you as a foreman. And then as the journeyman, as the foreman, I've got a bunch of additional responsibilities I want to give to them. And so I have this roadmap for them to follow that if they choose to do so, they can be really, really helpful. And as they learn these things, I want to pay them more because I'm happy to keep them around. And I know that if they were to go to another company, they're going to get promoted quickly. So yeah, I agree. Like it seems ruthless, but really it's just openness. The point is I want them to know what I expect of them. I want them to get there as quickly as they can, because ultimately the only reason I hired them is so that they can make money. The only reason I hired them is so that I can make more money. And the fact that I'm paying them is a product of me making more money. And if I can make more money if they add more value and it enables me to make more money, then why not pay them more? If I can just keep paying them more and I keep making more money, then awesome. Like that's why I say that there is no limit to how much I'm willing to pay a really competent person. And I say that because that was my experience. When I first started, I was a competent employee pretty quickly, but not only was I fairly competent pretty quickly, every single day I was looking at the things I could improve on, looking at the things I could do better, the things I could take. Like within a couple of months, I was the one who always sharpened the saws. Within a couple of months, I was the one who was like just finding more ways I could be useful. And that's why I got climbing. I bought the climbing gear. And when the climber didn't show up one day, I was like, I can do it. And I just more and more and more, I added more value to this company, more and more. And I got paid more every single year. And I asked for more money every single year till by the end, I was making more than twice what most climbers were in a day because I could make my company twice what most climbers could make the company I was working for. It wasn't a matter of okay, they're paying me more, so they're making less money. It's no, they're paying me more and they're making more money, because that's what a good employee can do. A good employee can enable their employer to continue to make more money. Pretty soon that my employer could go and not even be on the job site, and he could go and bid other jobs. And he could start a second crew if he wanted to, and he just didn't have to worry about it. He just didn't have to be on the site. Didn't matter. Things were going to get done right. And that's where they make more money. And so they'll just keep paying me more. And so that's what they have. And then I've worked with other companies, and eventually I just decided I was going to do it myself and run my own crew because I could and I wanted to. And I haven't honestly made that much more money at all running my own crew than I did working for this other guy, because he was better at bidding jobs than I am. But I'm going to get there eventually. It's just a process. So hopefully that made sense for you guys. It seems like the agricultural spectrum of performance relative to money making is pretty wide. Yeah, it scales almost. There's almost no limit to the scale. Both as an employee and as an employer. Like if I have great employees who are responsible and keep showing up on time and can run a job, and they learn those skills that I have on that cheat sheet that I told you guys about, then for every 3 guys I get who make their way through that all the way to journeyman, I can set them loose on a job and I can start a new crew, and I can just rinse and repeat. I can do that all day, over and over again as I get 3 employees who fill those jobs. And so I'll pay them a whole bunch more. In fact, I'm happy to spend more than half of what I'm going to make on any given job on the employees and on the equipment to make sure it gets done right, because I can just go make another one. I can go start another job and I can make more money. And so as long as they're providing more value, I can pay them more. So provide value, ask for the raise. That's it. That's all it takes. Those are the two things, but it's critical to provide value first and know what it is the value you're providing. Know how the value you're providing is greater than what someone else who is being paid the same amount is. So that's a point to know. It's good to do a little shopping around, look at other jobs, apply to other jobs so you know what other people are offering before you go to ask, because as soon as you ask, that's part of the leverage you have when you ask. It's like, look, I've shopped around, I've been to other jobs, and then I've, and I know what I can make if I go switch companies. And so I don't want to switch companies. I'd rather stay here. Can you pay me more? That is a compelling request. I will not turn that down. If they're continuing to increase their value, they've got another job offer, I will keep that guy. I will do everything I can to keep that guy. If they are, irreplaceable and responsible and they keep showing up. So that's it. Those are the two big steps. I can get into more specifics. If you want, I can list more of the things that I find really valuable in an employee personally, but those are going to be more tree specific. Those two general principles will pretty much apply to any career, any job that folks are at. So hopefully that was helpful. I'm happy to take some questions now. I've got a few here in the YouTube. This stream will be posted to my channel, so if there's anything you guys missed, you can check it up later. Gustavo, where can I find this with my cheat sheet? I don't have it posted anywhere yet. It is a list. Actually, I think I might have submitted it to some of my Patreon subscribers, but at this point, it's not public. If you would like it personally, send me a message. Or no, you know what? Give me your email on my website. I've got a decent website email list, and I will send that out as a group message to everyone on that email list if you would like. It's that list that I've got it is detailed. It's got a long list of skills. Some of them they're not. I don't have a paragraph written on every single skill about what it means to have accomplished that skill, but. So you might have to do some Google searching as to what some of these terms are. Like when I say you got to be able to set up a 2-to-1 with a redirect, or a 4-to-1 with a redirect using 2 ropes. Those are mechanical advantage systems, and you might have to look up what I mean by that. But I can't give you that list if you'd like. So shoot your email to my website, stridertrees.com. Mason, you asked, I just started climbing. Do you have any advice on how I can improve? Good for you, Mason. Be careful. If you get injured, you stop improving pretty quickly. So climb low and slow. Learn single rope, learn double rope, learn them both because they both have their place, their utility. And watch lots of YouTube videos. I've got a pretty thorough channel. The Educated Climber has some channels with some really good advice. There's definitely some useful information online as to a lot of the basic skills. But so much of climbing is practice. Like so much of it, it's being able to be in the tree, know how things feel, being able to be confident in your equipment. So don't buy cheap equipment. Like buy the best equipment you can afford, and do your research on what that is. Like I said, I've got a lot of basic skills videos that are pretty succinct. So if you want to check those out on my YouTube channel, you might find those really helpful. Others have said they like it. They're pretty much geared towards new climbers. Thanks for the appreciation there, Logan. I'm happy to be helpful. And here's a good question. How do you price quote? I know some jobs can be significantly higher risked, like the last tree that had a lean towards a house. You did 90 drop. Yeah. So that job that you saw there on my Instagram, that was actually a job I was doing for a contractor. So that was actually my first employer, my first long-term employer, who I now do contract work for pretty regularly. He bid that job. That was 3 trees. It took me and my 2 guys, basically 6 hours, 7 hours almost to do those 3 trees. It was a $4,000 job. And it was bid. There's a lot of things to consider with bidding. Number one, generally it's how long is it going to take? Like if everything goes perfectly smooth, how long is it going to take? If it's going to take me more than a day, then if it's going to take me, if I can do it in a day, then that's kind of like, I have a minimum mark that if it's going to take me all day, I gotta make whatever. For me out here in the West Coast, it's $2,500 for that day's work at a minimum. If next after that, I've got what I consider like a risk multiplier. So if what I'm doing is over a building or over cars or sheds or things that have value that I'm trying to save, then the risk multiplier comes into effect. I haven't exactly detailed what that is. I'm actually working on building a bid sheet that someone can kind of go down, run the formula, and get a price. I'm not quite that solid yet, but that's the next thing I consider is, okay, how long is it going to take? What is the actual risk? How likely is it something's going to get broken? Because stuff gets broken. Like, no matter how careful you are, unpredictable things happen. And I do my best to avoid those and to mitigate those, but stuff happens and you got to budget that in. So the more risk, the more it's going to cost. The next thing I think about is cleanup. What's the cleanup going to be? Do I have to haul stuff away? Am I going to be back for 3 days in a row with a dump trailer trying to fill it up and get rid of equipment? Do I need to make this place look like a golf course when I'm done? Are the people there at the house, are they going to be really grumpy if I leave a few sticks, or are they going to be totally chill if I leave a whole mess of leaves? That cleanup is a big part of the cost. If things are going to have to be really clean, I'm going to charge a lot more, and I'll tell them I'm charging more and say, if you want it really clean, you should pay a landscaper to do it because I'm a tree guy and my insurance is expensive and I don't want to be out here cleaning up. And so a lot of times I use that to bring some leverage. The last thing I think about is, okay, how badly do I want the job? Which comes down to is, do I like the client? Are they cool people to work with? Do they seem like they're going to be a pain in my butt? Are they grumpy? Are they really particular? Do they live in a really high wealthy neighborhood? Are they friends of mine? Obviously, the less I want to work with the client, the more I'm going to charge them. And the inverse of that is true. The more I like the client, the more they seem like good, reasonable people, the more I seem like they're not going to be after me for everything I possibly have if some small thing goes wrong. Like, the more I seem like they're good, reasonable people, I'll charge them less. Very often, I will charge them my minimum day rate for relatively big jobs if I just like the client and I want the job. So those are kind of the four big things that I consider most when I'm pricing a job. I'm not that great at I don't get as many bids as Tom does, who's this other guy who I work with, but I do a lot and my clients are really happy. And if you want the trick to keeping clients happy and always having work, under promise, over deliver. I tell that to everyone. Tell them you're going to break stuff. You're going to break the little tree that's under it, even though you're going to save. You're going to do your best to save it. You tell them worse things are going to happen and then you do better. So always under promise and over deliver. Do a little extra cleanup. Trim up a couple of extra little trees that weren't necessarily on the bid. Buck up some of the wood instead of just leaving it in a pile, or pile the wood instead of just bucking it. Just that little bit extra on top of what they expect will leave them happy every time. It's all about expectations. If the client expects less and you do more, they will be stoked. It doesn't even matter what they expect. If they expect a ridiculous mess in their yard and you give them that plus a little bit better, they're going to be stoked about it. It's all about managing that expectation. Under promise, over deliver. Okay, as a climber that's been climbing every day for about a year with a Splend, and what would a competent residential climber be making hourly? Sorry, Greg, I have no idea. It's so dependent on your area. Out here in California, one of the big contractors is Mountain Enterprise, and they've recently unionized their climbers. So they've got a climbers union, and they've also got, we have ridiculous demand for tree work out here because the fires have been so bad that insurance companies are big time dropping houses, a lot of residential area. They're dropping people because of the fire risk. And so there's way more work than there are competent people to do it. And so that it creates this, it kind of buoys up the market out here for good climbers. So I really wouldn't know what a competent residential climber would be making hourly. You can kind of do some research online. There's some various resources that'll give you a general idea. But if you want to make the most, then California is a good way to go. Unfortunately, the cost of living is insane out here, but if you can do a commuter thing, then it can be good. So it's, trying to find a place to live is insane. All right, see if we got another question here. If you're just starting out, what's the best way to get clients besides word of mouth? Um, the best way, I don't know. I mean, word of mouth is really useful. Obviously, we're in a weird world right now when it comes to the service industry. Things like Yelp, Facebook, they're these social media, these places where you can get feedback from a big group of people. They're so significant in how they affect a business. I'll just give you a personal example. The week I signed up for Yelp, I had the worst PR incident I've had in the history of my company. Um, Long story short, some gal who was not even a client of mine was really upset with me and my crew, and they left me a bad review on Yelp. I spent $600 a month for 3 or 4 months after that. I think I got one job from Yelp, and I fought the review because it wasn't from an actual client. They eventually removed it, but 3 weeks of having a bad review and then having no reviews just killed my online reputation with Yelp, even though I've got a pretty good one with Facebook. So it's tough, man. Like, I wouldn't say just go straight to Yelp, get your business on there, pay them to advertise for you, blah, blah, blah. I don't know if that's a good way to go. In my area, some of the apps like Nextdoor and Neighborhood, those are really good places to start building a local clientele. Because if you get your name out there, get your business out there, do a little bit of advertising that's tied to you as a person and your social media reputation, if you are a reputable person, a lot of times that can drum up some good work. You could also hit up local realtors and say, hey, look, I'm starting a new tree business. I've been in this for a long time. I do good work. If you have clients who need tree work, would you mind recommending me? Take them out to lunch, whatever, schmooze. But real estate agents develop a lot of work too. So that's another way you can start building up that clientele. How do I get better at rigging? Rejas asks. Rigging is there's a huge skill curve to rigging. Honestly, that's a lot of the fun of tree work for me comes from rigging, because there's the physics of it is fascinating. I will start. I'm in the process of building a couple of videos talking about the physics of rigging and how to think through putting tie-in points and how to plan out how you're going to remove the tree. But there are a couple of good resources. Treestuff.com actually has a decent video right now where they talk about picking how to choose the angles of your tie-in point, and they do a pretty good demonstration on this little model tree, and it's super useful. So you could check out that tree stuff video on rigging. This is one of those things where practice is invaluable. You have to just do it, but you can actually practice without doing it. You can go out to the park, look up at a tree, and imagine how you would remove the tree. You can walk around a backyard, and anytime you're just out watching trees, you can think, okay, that tree that's leaning over that building like that as you're driving by, okay, how would I rig that? And you can build a plan in your head and actually think through what that would be like. And that sort of conceptual practice, while it's no replacement for actually doing it, is really useful for building a plan in your own mind as to how you will tackle a tree. So hopefully that's a little bit helpful for you. That's kind of how I did it. I really didn't even have much of any teachers. I watched some YouTube videos and I thought through it a lot. The biggest thing that you always got to be aware of with rigging is, how do I keep the loads in compression? When you're rigging on anything, whether it's negative or positive, you want to make sure that the loads, which can be significant, are in compression. And then, making sure to know what your capacities are for your ropes, having some idea of the weight of your picks. I highly recommend people learn how to use a crane in rigging. If you've got a company that is willing to rent a crane, it can be so much cheaper to do tricky rigging scenarios if you have crane access than it is to actually rig it all out piece by piece. I highly recommend that. I've done thousands of crane jobs. I've rigged far more trees with a crane over a building than I have actually rigged them down. It's just so much more practical. It's safer. It's easy. And it's not terribly difficult to learn, especially if you have a good crane operator help talk you through balancing your picks and making sure the center of gravity is below the point of support and all those sorts of things. So hopefully that's a little bit helpful for you guys. I feel like you're kidding. I don't know what you think I'm kidding about, but were there any other questions here? We're going on about half an hour. Probably going to wrap it up pretty quick. Thank you guys for joining me. I appreciate it. Hopefully some of that was useful. Go out there and get a raise, make more money, do well, climb safe, and live it up out there, guys. Thanks for joining me. I will catch you next time.